we're going to look at using GIT. GIT is a version control system that allows us to keep track of our projects. It actually keeps track of our projects for us. It allows us to keep a history of every change we've ever made in a project. And if along the way something happens to our project, we have the ability to go back to a previous version of the project. It also allows us to work as a team, so we can have multiple people contributing to the same project and contributing those changes, and we can track the changes and make sure that everybody's changes work together. And we can publish those changes in a repository, which is a place where we keep our project. We can publish repositories online and share them and just do lots of nice things. Right now, we're going to start with learning how to use it just to track our own personal changes on our own personal computer. Keep track of those changes, reverse those changes if we need to do something, go back in time, whatever. And then the second stage, we'll learn how to get our personal projects stored online. And then we'll add in the piece where we can actually share projects with other users, make branches of our projects, edit them together, and then bring all the changes that all the different users do together as a team, bring them back into the project. So we're going to start simple for now, just keeping track of our local projects and the changes we make to those. So to use Git, you have to install it. So the website to download it is git-scm. Okay, and Git is Git, G-I-T, not G-E-T, -scm.com. When you go there to their main page, you should see over on the right, it'll detect your operating system, and you'll see a download link to download the Windows version of Git. If you're on Windows. If you're on a Mac, you'll see be able to download the Mac version. If you're on Linux, you'd be able to download the version for Linux. It works on every operating system. So let's go over here. We'll download 2.3.0 for Windows. When you click on it, it will start the download. I am going to stop my download because I've already downloaded it. I am on a slow connection and I don't want to have to wait, so I downloaded it ahead of time. So I will go into my downloads folder. And this is the download. I shortened the name a little bit. We'll double click on that. Say yes to allow it to download. And then we're going to go through some setup options. Now, there are a few things we want to be careful of in here. All right, we'll take the default on most screens. So the first screen we're okay, we'll take the default. The second screen, by default, it wants to use Vim, which is a text editor that's built into Linux. Since this was originally developed on Linux and a lot of programmers use Vim, we tend to use Notepad++ at this stage in our lives. So we're going to use Notepad++ as Git's default editor. So make sure you select that. We'll use that as our editor for editing our text files. On the next screen, it says let Git decide to whether to use our default branch name. Currently is master. Now there's been some changes. So if you've watched the previous videos I had on Git, we picked this default, but there's a lot of changes coming out with Git. And one of the things that they're changing in GitHub, which is one of the places where we'll be storing our files, has automatically or already updated their system to not use the word master anymore. The master-slave connotation isn't very popular with a lot of people. So now the trend is everything is called main instead of master. So we'll have a main branch instead of a master branch. So if you've already installed this before, this is one of the changes we're going to make. Click this button so that your default branch name for new repositories will now be main. So if you see a branch, as we get into this, if you see branches on older repositories that say master, understand that everything we're going to do now with main, sometimes you have to use the word master. But we're going to adapt to the new way of doing things to save some confusion. later on down the road with our projects and when we start using GitHub to store our projects online. So we'll use main for everything. So we want our default branch to be called main when we create our new repository. So we'll hit next on that. We'll take this middle option, which is the default, and default. Windows and Linux on text files use different kind of endings for the line of your text file. Sometimes they use just a line feed. Sometimes they use carriage return line feed. That's what LF and CRLF. We're going to check out as Windows style, and we'll commit using Linux. That's the default. It kind of lets, most of the time, Git's going to just handle that for you. So we'll check that. We'll keep that first option. We'll keep the defaults there, keep the defaults there. So defaults on everything else. So the two settings we changed were use Notepad as our editor and the setting to use main for our main branch instead of master for the master branch. And then I don't need to look at the release notes. I'm not going to have it automatically launch Git Bash. We'll do that manually, and we'll hit finish. So on your start menu now, if you go down to Git, you should have an option for Git Bash, and you can click that to start it. And this is the console that we'll be using to issue our Git commands from here on out. I always like to come down to my menu bar because we use this a lot, and pin it to the taskbar. You can see, all right, I've already pinned it. So pin it to the taskbar. That way it's always a convenient place to go in and start your Git Bash session. And Bash is just a command window where we can type commands to work inside Git. And we'll talk more about that in the next video.